First of all, thank you for being here this morning. I had a dream last night, and in my dream I was preaching here at the church today, and 3 people came. So, thanks for being here, so that dream didn't come true. Many of you were at the, any of you ladies at the Unknown tour last night? Okay. Well, it sounds like they had quite a crowd. And according to my wife, one of the take-homes from it was that God can even speak through your mother. That's what the lady said. And she gave some evidence of it. Well, I mentioned that to say I hope that God is speaking today. I'm down here rather than up there because I don't mean it to be that way, but when you're up there, sometimes people get the idea you're preaching. I don't mean to do that, I mean to just talk to you, but I want to make it as plain as I can today. I'm not preaching, I'm just talking with you. And first thing that I'll tell you is that I'm a little nervous because my pattern is normally this. I was visiting with a pastor who called me and asked me to preach at his church the first Sunday in June, so that's coming up. But he just called me back recently and wanted to talk about some of the things for the service. And I said, well, you know, I've really already got the sermon laid out, even though it was 3 months ago that he called me. So that's my normal procedure. I'm retired, so I got time. He and a lot of the other pastors where I go to preach, they got a lot of other things they got to do. I don't have to do any of that stuff. I got grandkids, so that's a whole new, different issue, but I don't have to do that kind of stuff. So I have time to work on my sermons. So normally, when I get a call to go someplace, I start working on it right away. So when I found out middle of last month that I was going to be here again for 3 Sundays this month, I started working on it back then. And I had the 3 Sundays laid out. So then that would mean that I had laid out what I was going to preach. So this last Monday, I would have started going over what I had laid out for today. But we were out of town on Monday. We were with grandkids all day until in the night on Tuesday. And we were down to Des Moines with grandkids on Wednesday and didn't get home until 10 o'clock. That's my long way of saying I didn't have any time to work on the sermon at all. But when I sat down on Thursday with what I had, normally I would have thought about it even those days, even though I wasn't around, and none of that was coming to me. And I kept thinking about other things. So on Thursday morning when I sat down, I said, God, is there something else you want me to say today? Whether it is or not, this is what came out. I had a devotion when I asked that. And as I read the devotion, it was a devotion out of Turning Point by David Jeremiah. And this is the devotion that I read. One story in circulation claims that a mother and son were eager to attend a concert by a renowned Polish pianist, who I'm not even going to try and pronounce. Just it was a renown, okay? When the house lights dimmed, the mother discovered that the child was missing. As the curtain rose, the mother noticed in horror that her little boy was sitting at the keyboard, innocently picking out Twinkle, Twinkle, Little Star. At that moment, the great piano master made his entrance, quickly moved to the piano, and whispered in the boy's ear, "Don't quit, keep playing." Leaning over, the pianist reached down with his left hand and began filling in the bass part. Together, the old master and the young novice transformed a tense situation into a wonderful creative experience. David Jeremiah says, whether this story is true or not, it is a perfect example of the relationship we have with our Heavenly Father. What we can accomplish on our own is hardly noteworthy. But with the hand of the Master, our lives' work can become something beautiful. Next time you set out to accomplish great feats, listen to the voice of the Master whispering in your ear, "Don't quit, keep playing." Don't quit, keep playing. Or, what did we read today from 2 Corinthians chapter 4? Therefore, we do not lose heart. We do not lose heart. As I read that, I thought, because that's what I've been thinking about. Don't quit. Don't quit. Don't lose heart. It reminded me that God's at work. Sometimes we don't see it. Sometimes we wonder, but God is at work. In Psalms 127:1 it says, "Unless the Lord builds the house, the laborers labor in vain." It reminded me, if we look close, we can see God at work. Like last Sunday, when they had no idea that I was going to mention, it was not Easter. Was last Sunday Easter Sunday? No, it was not. So they had no idea I was going to mention because He lives. So that's the last thing I mentioned. And what was the last thing? And that was after I had just mentioned being at a church where the pianist had no idea that I was going to mention him. And that is the very hymn that she played for the end of the service. Or it reminded me of when I was at First Baptist as an interim pastor, and the worship band played a Chris Tomlin song at the end. Coincidentally, and it was not his most famous song by any means, but coincidentally, that was the song that I had talked about in the message. And they had no idea. That's why we don't give up. Because He's faithful. And we can count on that. And where does that bring us as we gather here today? We need to remember what we have. And so often we forget. I mentioned to someone last week that that week I had gone, my barber, Jim the barber, was celebrating 60 years of cutting hair. And they had a little party for him. And he's not only my barber, he's a friend of mine, and went to the church that I pastored for 20 years. So, we're there, and how do I put this? I was close to the youngest one there. Yeah. And Jim and his wife was putting on the party, his wife, who walked around with a three-pronged walker and could barely get around and could barely move, and has had I don't know how many replacements. And then there were the rest of the people there at that time were, like I said, maybe my age, most of them older. So, I didn't do this. I'm not a thoughtful person, I guess, but many of the people brought congratulation cards. And so she had them, and she was walking away with her walker with these when she dropped one. And it fell to the floor there. And Jim said to her, Teddy, you dropped one. And I'm standing there thinking, Teddy, you dropped one. Pick it up. But he stood there staring at it. I think there's a reason. And there was no way on earth she was going to pick it up. That would have been disastrous. And the other guys standing around me, they standing there staring at it like there was a snake on the floor. So, and I'm not going to tell you all the my maladies and things that I deal with, but so I took a couple steps over, reached down, picked it up, and gave it to her. And the gentleman standing next to me said, "Show off." I tell you that to say to you, we need to be reminded sometimes, even though there's a lot of things that are not maybe as they should be, but we still have lots to be thankful for, don't we? So as we sit here today in the Liscombe Church, this church, these people, what do you have to be thankful for here? I'm pausing to give you a second to think. I looked it up. I've been here for 12 Sundays. Not consecutively, but on and off the last couple. 12 Sundays. So I've gotten to know you some. And I see some good people here. Isn't that something that we have to be thankful for? I see a committed group. I mean, look at the timing. I see a committed, a dedicated group. I see a lot of good things happening here. I wrote this all down, and I had no idea what was going to be shown on the screen today. Did all of that just happen, folks? Wasn't there a lot of commitment there? Wasn't there a lot of dedication there? Wasn't there a lot to be thankful for there? How many things do we have here to be thankful for? Even though we may be dealing with some things, going through some things, wondering about some things, even maybe a little nervous about some things. No, we have a lot to be thankful for. I want for myself, and I believe you want to, in our lives to lift high the name of Jesus. To be faithful to the calling. I mentioned this before, but I looked again at the directory that you folks handed out a while ago. And again, I looked at some of the comments that Ralph made in that directory. And this is one of the things that I noticed that he said. I believe that the Lord has blessed us for not giving up. Isn't that what we just read out of 2 Corinthians? We don't lose heart. We don't give up. He went on to say, may we be found faithful witnesses to the power of the name of Jesus. Can't forget that, can we? Not in our power. It's not in our strength. Paul said, I can do all things through Christ who gives me strength. That's why we are thankful. That's why we don't give up. That's why we don't lose heart. as I thought about all this, I've mentioned to a few of you in the time that I've been here that you're not the only one that's going through, or that has gone through what you're going through right now. And what's going to happen, and how's it going to work out, and et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And I thought, they'll probably think, oh yeah, it's easy for you to say. Well, I'm going to give you today some of the reasons, all of you, not just a couple of you that I visited with, but all of you, some of the reasons that I say, don't give up. You're not the only one that's going through it. You're not the only one dealing with it. And I struggled with how specific do I be? But I thought, if I'm not specific, then you're going to think he's making this up. So I'm just telling you, here it is. I'm naming names, and you can go ask the people yourself. Is he telling us the truth? I mentioned to you that I started after I retired, in 2012, going out and preaching at churches. And in that time, I preached at 24 different churches. And today, I looked it up in my book, today is the 253rd Sunday that I've been out preaching. So I've been in a lot of churches, a lot of situations. And I've seen a lot of churches in that time, since 12, that have gone through what you're going through. One of the churches I preached at was First Friends Church in Marshalltown. In May of 2015, I preached there for 6 months, after which time they got a pastor, and then there were some other things, and on, and then in 2021, they were in need of a pastor again, and so I was back there and again preached there for several months. I have not preached there since August of 2021 because they have a pastor and things are going very well. But they went, if you follow that, from 15 to 21 but you can go to First Friends Church in Marshalltown. If you know anybody there, go and ask them. They're pretty happy right now. I preached at the Cloutier Community Church, and I preached there on and off beginning in 2016 for almost 4 years. But the last time I preached there was in March of 2020. And all the reports I'm getting, things are going very well. They've had a pastor since then. I'm going there the last Sunday this month to preach again, the first time I've been there since 2020. But I'll check it out for myself, but that's what I've heard. I preached at First Baptist Church, now known Journey. I was the interim pastor there from 2013 to 2014, parts of both of those years. They had gone through a tough time, and when I was the interim pastor there, things had kind of gone down. My neighbor, who kept all the statistics for the church and so kept me informed, at the time that I was the interim pastor there, we got the church back up to 330 were attending on Sunday morning. They got a pastor. It did not work out so well. A lot of the people did not like the pastor. They lost over 75 people. They decided to let the pastor go, and they lost 75 more people because they didn't like the way they handled it. Even though that's a big church, that's a lot of people. Let me see here. So, but the last time I preached there was in 2020, and they had just gotten a new pastor. He'd been there for a few months. That was in 2020. Todd, I think your daughter can vouch for this. because I just visited a couple weeks ago with several people in that church. They are having over 400 attend on Sunday mornings. Union Community Church, I've preached there quite a bit since 2013. But that's just on and off. But the last time I preached there was 2022. Again, that's pretty close, and you surely know some people that go there. You can ask them. They've been very happy since 2020 with the pastor that they have, and things are going very well. I can go on. Eldora Congregational Church. I started filling in there in May of 22. Things were getting pretty bad there. And people were pretty down. But I've not been back there to preach. They've had different people preaching since that time. And they kept calling me. For the last couple of months, they've been calling me to come up, but I've been here. So I couldn't go up there. But I am going to go up there the end of June. And the lady said, we're so thankful that you can come fill in those 2 Sundays, because that will be right before our new pastor comes. Honey Creek, New Providence. I preached there Palm Sunday and Easter, and I preached there on and off. And they've been without a pastor for well over a year now. But I was told when I was there on Easter that they think that they have a pastor who will be coming the end of the summer. Now, those are ones that I know about. I'm sure there are way more churches than that. But that's quite a few, even the ones that I know about and that I've worked with. I say to you today, don't lose heart. Don't give up. We read from 2 Corinthians chapter 4 today. Don't lose heart. That applies not only to us as individuals and us as a church. That also applies to our reaching out. As we reach out, as we try to share the gospel, we don't give up. Several years ago now, my wife and I took a cruise with some other family members in Alaska. And one of the last days of the cruise, a person came on very familiar with wildlife in that area. And so they were on the loudspeakers in the ship telling us, we'll see the whales, we'll see this, all this kind of stuff. Well, after a very busy day of looking at wildlife, we were just worn out. I'm being facetious. But so we were up in the 9th deck in the back of the ship, in the place where you have food 24/7. And we were taking nourishment. And it was a great big room with one side of the ship was all glass, and the other side over here was all glass. And then there were booths all along both of those places, and then all kinds of tables in the middle. And we happened to be sitting at one of the booths by the glass over here. And we were eating as the wildlife person came on, and they were just so excited I couldn't hardly hear what they were saying. They were just, oh! Well, the long and short of it was that they had spotted a mother bear and her cub up there on the mountain. And they wanted everyone to see that. And it happened to be on our side of the ship. And I got a little nervous because everybody crowded to our side of the ship. I thought, we're tipping over here. And everybody was looking and looking. And, one after another, oh yeah, right there, oh yeah, right there. And I am straining, I'm doing everything. I cannot see it. And I had borrowed some binoculars from somebody, and they had lenses on them like this. And they were huge. And I'm using those things. And I still couldn't see it. And people were giving me all kinds of, line it up with this tree, and, all kinds of advice. And I still, and I'm looking through those binoculars, and I didn't know the person, but somebody came up behind me and grabbed those binoculars, and they were, right there, right there, right there. And just about everybody, including everyone that I was with, had seen the bears, and I had stood on them. And finally, I said, oh yeah, right there. I share that with you to say that I in my life, I don't know about you, but I in my life have tried and tried to get people to see Jesus and why he came and what we have in him and what they can have in him. And they haven't seen it, and they haven't seen it, and they haven't seen it. And this has gone on for some of those folks for years and years and years. And I don't know about you, but for me it gets discouraging. What I'm saying to you, don't give up. Because maybe someday, if you don't give up, they, like me, will say, oh yeah. Now I don't just say that, you got to have a little bit of something to back it up. Here's a couple of examples that I know of in my life. One is the last church I pastored before I retired was the Iowa River Church, just out east of Marshalltown. And there was a man that lived in Green Mountain, just north of the church, and people in the church talked about him all the time. And I can remember when at Christmas time we would go caroling at his house, at their house, he and his wife. And I didn't say too much, but I was thinking, why are we doing this? They never come. They never come. They never come. And he got sick. He was in the hospital several times. And the people of the church encouraged me to go visit him. And I'm thinking, they never come. But I did go visit him, and he hardly even acknowledged that I was there. And I came to find out that I wasn't the only one he treated this way. I didn't need to take it personally because... So, after years and years and years and years, I was at the church for 20 years. And about 3 years before I retired, before I left the church, one Sunday morning, I got up and I come from Clemens, and I was preaching there, and I came over to the Iowa River Church, and I walked up and I looked, and he and his wife were sitting right there. I did a double take. I couldn't believe it. And they were there Sunday after Sunday after Sunday. They even started attending Bible study. And I can't tell you all the things. I can't tell you how different his life was. He came to the place where he saw for himself. A person that I almost gave up on. Well, I rambled long enough on that one that I'm not going to tell you about the one in Clemens, but I got another story to tell you at Clemens, very similar, and for a lot of years. Last one I'll mention is, I mentioned to you that a few weeks ago, by the way, whoever picked out the music for the video, I liked it. You can't beat Toby Mac. born. I'm trying to think, who's the group that did I go on?
Mercy Me.
Mercy Me. At any rate, I told you I was at a concert a few weeks ago in Marshalltown, and I told you that Jim, the barber I go to, is still cutting hair for 60 years, and he went to the church at Iowa River where I was a pastor, and his aunt and uncle, fixtures in that church. I'm talking fixtures in that church. And they had 5 kids, and they had kids, and then there were grandkids. But we were reminiscing just recently. Those folks were fixtures in the church, and the dad, always on Father's Day, asked the rest of the family, I only have one request, come to church. And so this center section here would have been filled with their family on that Sunday. And yet, as Jim and I were talking, not a one of those kids attended church. Not a one. And we talked about how sad they would be that none of their kids went to church. Just discouraging, I'm saying, just discouraging. So I'm at this concert, and I'm visiting with a couple people from the church, and I'm going up around to go back to where I was sitting, and this woman, young lady, stopped me. And it took me a second, but I figured out right away, and it was the people I'm talking about, fixtures in the church. It was their granddaughter. Their granddaughter. The people that had 5 kids, none of which went to church. Well, one of those kids had a daughter who does go to church. And what a joy it was to visit with her. She said, we go to Christian concerts all the time. She and her husband, and they had 2 teenage kids and a couple other kids. She said, yeah, we go to concerts all the time. And I said, and where do you go to church? She said, well, we go to, I'd never heard of it, but church in Iowa City that was started by the Cornerstone Church over in Ames. Folks, it's why we don't give up. It's why we don't lose heart. For my devotions yesterday, I read from Deuteronomy chapter 1. And guess what it said in Deuteronomy chapter 1? Don't lose heart. Popular Christian group, 8 years ago they were really popular. They're from Ohio. I'm from Ohio, so obviously I gotta like them. But no, they were popular. Called Sanctus Reum. And they had a song called Run. And it was written by the lead singer whose young son had all kinds of health issues. It was a tough situation. And, but they didn't give up. And his story actually made national news. And it was at that time when he was going through that he wrote a song that became, I think, their most popular song. And part of the words are this: don't lose heart when you're feeling low, when the road looks long and you don't know if you can make it on your own. You're not on your own. You gotta run to the arms of love. Run to the arms of love. Run to the arms of love. We're talking today, and that song says what? You're not on your own. Can you remember that? Pretty important. You're not on your own. Because of that, you need to run to the arms of love. Psalms 34:8 says, Blessed are the ones who run